And we'll be moving on to general items. Emergency water restrictions and water conservation update. This will be presented by Diana Langley, Public Works Director. Diana.
Good evening. So tonight I'm presenting an update on the emergency water restrictions and conservation. Here's a slide that summarizes our water sources. So the city has 2 state water resource control boards. One's a license, one's a permit. We have a contract through North Yuba Water District, and then a contract through the Department of Water Resources as a state water contractor. Our contract allotment is 32,848 acre feet. That does include the backup groundwater well at the water treatment plant, and so that's really based upon the production that well can provide. The projected 2016 allotment is 21,753 acre feet. So how does that compare to our recent demands? Here you can see that in 2013, which is the year that the state of California uses as the baseline, our demand was 18,178 acre feet. Last year, in 2015, our demand dropped to 13,769 acre feet. And so that was the 32, first it was the voluntary 25% conservation mandate, and then the 32% mandatory that went into effect in June. And so you can see that over that period of time, even though we didn't meet our mandate amount, we still conserved a significant amount of water. On May 19th, Governor Brown issued Executive Order B3716, titled Making Water Conservation a California Way of Life. The impacts to Yuba City are related to use water more wisely, eliminate water waste, and strengthen local drought resistance. On May 18th, the State Water Resource Control Board adopted the new emergency conservation regulations. And since June of 2015, the city has achieved a cumulative conservation amount of over 25%. So what do these new requirements mean for Yuba City? So under Use Water More Wisely, the state has requested that local agencies, water providers, determine a locally developed conservation standard. You evaluate your 2013 and 2014 water demands and compare that to your water supply for this year and the previous 2 years. So our water supply the previous 2 years are probably the worst on record for Yuba City. So when we make that calculation, our new conservation standard is 15%. They also request that, or the state will be working on new water use targets, so that 20% reduction by 2020. They're going to be issuing new water use targets in January of 2017. And they also are requesting that urban water suppliers permanently report their water consumption on a monthly basis. So we've been doing that for the duration of the drought, and they're proposing to make this, or they are making this a permanent requirement. With eliminate water waste, the activities noted would be prohibited or are prohibited permanently. So hosing off sidewalks, driveways, and other hardscapes, washing automobiles with hoses not equipped with a shutoff nozzle, using non-recirculated water in a fountain or other decorative water feature, watering lawns in a manner that causes runoff or within 48 hours after measurable precipitation, and irrigating ornamental turf on public street medians. And then they're also requesting that we minimize water system leaks. To strengthen local drought resistance, they will be issuing new requirements for urban water shortage contingency plans in January 2017. On June 21st, you're going to see me bring forward our urban water management plan, which is due by July 1st to the Department of Water Resources. So I anticipate when these new requirements are brought forward in January 2017, we'll be bringing forward some type of amendment to our urban water management plan, as it includes our water shortage contingency plan. So I'd expect changes to come to that. So with these restrictions, what staff is recommending is that the locally developed water conservation standard be reduced from our current 28% down to 15%. We're also requesting to remove the current mandatory irrigation restrictions limiting watering to 2 days per week. Now, many other agencies have changed their restrictions to 3 days per week. I'm not recommending that. During the drought, when we had the 2-day limitation in effect, I I received phone calls from numerous customers saying, you know, we can get you to where you need to be in terms of conservation without you telling us what days of the week to water or how to water. And so staff is recommending to remove the irrigation restrictions, continue to monitor it over the next few months to make sure at least we're meeting the 15%. And then if adjustments are necessary, come forward at a later time to recommend adjustments. And then continue to enforce elimination of water waste as noted in section 6-6.19 of the municipal code. So our municipal code aligns with what the state listed as prohibitions for water waste. So what we're proposing is continue enforcement measures related to water waste. That would be a surcharge on the water bill. So the first violation would be a written warning. Second violation would be a $50 surcharge. Third violation, $100 surcharge. Fourth violation, $250 surcharge. The process would be as our employees are out in the field, if they notice people water wasting, and we all see it when we're driving around, you see water running down the gutter. They would give a person, first of all, let us know so we can issue a written warning, and then try to work with the customer to address whatever situation's taking place to stop that water waste. So what will be the impacts on the revenues? So with the reduction in the conservation mandate from 28% to 15%, it is anticipated that water consumption will increase, which will also increase revenues. And so as we're looking tomorrow night to have the protest hearing for the rate increases, we'll have a discussion tomorrow night about this potential impact on the reduction in the conservation standard. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions of Diana?
Through the mayor.
Go ahead.
I have a couple questions. You mentioned that the water waste is when one of the items was if you're irrigating within 48 hours of measurable precipitation.
Yes.
I would say that's probably one that's very hard to enforce because people don't go out and turn their sprinklers off just automatically doing that. Do we still have the toilet replacement or rebate program going? Perhaps we might look at a program where we have some type of a rebate program for moisture sensors for irrigation systems so that we could, because quite honestly, like I say, if it rains, people aren't thinking about that when it's raining, that I need to go turn my sprinkler off, and especially if we're going to change our days and so on. But maybe looking at some type of a program where we had those available for people so that it would be more interactive and would be something that we'd take advantage of and not be watering when the ground is wet. And that could work full-time too, instead of just the 48 hours. So.
Yeah, so we have a rebate program for smart irrigation timers. A lot of our customers haven't really taken us up on that. The more popular program has been the toilets.
Right.
Part of that, though, has been with the limitation of 2 days per week, they weren't allowed to work effectively.
Right.
And so we do have a rebate program in place for smart irrigation timers today.
Do those also include a water sensor then, or a moisture sensor?
Typically they do, so that they are more weather-based or, based upon the moisture in the soil.
All right, thank you.
Other questions?
No questions, but I did want the public to know that Diane and I... Diane and I...
We're going to switch mics around for you real quick and see maybe if we can't throw that one in the trash. I'm sorry, send it off for repair.
Now we'll find out if it's the mic. Or the, yep. We're on the Regional Water Authority, and I can say that the communities, the local agencies pushed very hard for basically a local control of whatever the conservation percentages will be based upon real data rather than one size fits all, or the governor and his whoever advises him to be the one to decide for all the regions of the state. So that's where some of it now comes back to the local agencies or water providers, but that also puts a burden on them to have to go out and figure out those numbers to do it. But it is a lot better than the state government just coming out and saying, hey, you're going to save 32%, especially in Yuba City when we were already somewhat a conservation-minded group on using water already. We were unable to reach that savings goal because we already saved, and they didn't take any of that into consideration. So it was local governments working hard to bring it back to our local control, and opinions of the community would be very strongly encouraged in these communities to support the local government's decisions.
Any other comments before public speaks? I do have a speaker card in front of me for Mr. Robert Smith. And I see that Elaine is lined up in the back, and I assume it's for this item. All right. There you go. You'll go after Mr. Smith.
Well, it sounds like perhaps my concern will be addressed tomorrow, but I was noticing that the fiscal impact is going to raise more money for the county, or for the city rather. And I look back on the reasons why the HCF was dropped from 15 to 10 and then I guess increased to 11, and it was to encourage conservation. Now it sounds like you're saying you can sell more, so we're going to sell more. And I'd like to see some of that maybe come back in the form of increased HCF for the local homeowners, rather than it just all be sold, especially to the large buyers. That's it. Thank you.
You know, we're hearing you tonight, and certainly that discussion will be had tomorrow night. And I would encourage you to come to that meeting tomorrow night. Elaine?
Elaine Miles. I want to say ditto, because reducing to 11 and then encouraging us to use more effectively. But what I really came up here to say is, I know that you have helped with toilets and so forth, but I think that you need to advertise that a little bit more. I've talked to several tenants, renters of houses, and they don't know that that would really help the house. They think that they would have to pay their portion of it. So I think there needs to be a little more advertisement, so maybe we can get more of it done. And the same thing with the sprinklers, because they're a little afraid of raising their rent on anything that happens, and I fully understand that because I happen to be a landlord too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think a lot of notification went out as that program started out and went to a lot of the different property owners. I'm not sure how much outreach we did to renters because it is the property owner's responsibility to be able to come forward and get that all of those grants.
So we've had information in utility bills. So that if the renter is the water customer, they would have received it. But I will say that we have reserved a full page ad in the next Prospect magazine that'll come out in July. And so that would be an opportunity to promote the rebate program. We're going to be participating in the summer stroll, so we can have information there. And then we'll also be participating at the Yuba City Fair, so we can have information there as well. And we can put it back out in the utility bill inserts as well.
Okay. And I do want to let the public know that the information is fairly fluid as we began. I guess that's a pun on water. It's fairly fluid because as we started looking at this, it was last year that we started looking at the rates, and as we move forward, and the governor was promising that this was a new lifestyle, that this was going to be enforced for a duration of time. Nobody knew whether or not the drought was going to end. It hasn't ended, so to speak. We got more precipitation than what was expected in Northern California. Southern California still has experienced a drought, and they would be still in a classified drought in Southern California. They're a consumer of water. But with nobody would, I don't believe anybody would have anticipated in May that the governor would be coming forward with new recommendations through his office. And again, it's a bunch of about 25-year-olds advising the governor on what's going on. Nothing wrong with their age, that they don't have a long history in water use and everything else. They're looking at more empirical data and trying to come up with things through the governor's office. So much of this stuff is going to change. I would imagine in January we're going to see other things coming forward right in the middle of a winter. So look forward to the ever-changing information from Governor Brown's office. So any other members of the public wish to speak? Seeing now, we're bringing it back to the council. Any other comments or direction from council?
To the mayor, I go ahead and don't really have any comments other than addition to what you just said is some of this information came across, but we'll be discussing it more in detail tomorrow. So this stuff isn't really on the agenda other than taking it from the 30-some-odd% down to the 15%. So I'd move with staff's recommendation to bring it down to 15% based upon the new information we have at hand.
I'd like to second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. The item passes.